Good afternoon, everyone. I want to thank y'all for tuning in here this busy week and joining us in the penultimate part of our Leap Texas webinar series. Today we have a couple of great presenters from University of Texas at Arlington, Andrew Clark and Justin Dellinger, who are going to be talking to us about teamwork. So I'm going to go ahead at this time and turn the presentation over to them. I would ask that if you do have questions or comments, to please drop those into the chat. And at this point, it's all yours, Andrew.
Thanks very much, Jeff. I appreciate it and appreciate everybody coming. And hopefully we've got something interesting for you today. I'm going to turn my camera off and we'll just go through the presentation. So I'm Andrew Clark. I'm Associate Professor in the Department of Communication here at UT Arlington. And then I'm also the QEP Director for the university. And I'm Associate Director for our Center for Research on Teaching and Learning Excellence. So I wear a number of hats. And Justin is Associate Director for the Link Research Lab here at UTA and also works with CERTL as well. And so our presentation today, Enhancing and Assessing Teamwork Through Open Access Student and Instructor Teamwork Guides. And let me see if I can, there we go. Our focus on teamwork and the reason why we're kind of interested in it has to obviously do with our accreditation through SACS. And so in putting together our Quality Enhancement Plan, we went through a number of different iterations and eventually focused or ended up focusing on this issue of teamwork. And we created an initiative called Collaborate UTA, which became our Quality Enhancement Plan. And there's a number of reasons why we settled on teamwork, and I'm not going to go into all of them, but just the major one thing, you know, if you look at employer surveys and you look at this, the sense of what type of skills, what kind of marketable skills are you looking for in recent graduates, and teamwork is always near the top, if not the top one, and certainly in the top 2 or 3. And so as we thought about teamwork, and particularly in terms of things like the 60 by 30 plan and our own strategic plan at the university, you know, this notion that teamwork is something that employers are wanting, but students traditionally, and I don't know about you, but I've certainly found it throughout my career of almost 20 years in teaching, particularly at UTA, is that students dislike teamwork, and they dislike it for a number of different reasons. But we've got this dilemma then. We've got employers that want it, that say it's a really necessary skill. We've got students that don't like it, and then faculty are really caught in between. And oftentimes faculty don't have the tools or are not really taught themselves, you know, how to teach teamwork, how to teach it effectively, or how to teach it in a way that's engaging and experiential, and that is going to benefit students as they go through their college career, and then as they obviously look for work once they've graduated. So that's kind of the dilemma that we were sort of wrestling with and have been wrestling with. The initial plan with our Quality Enhancement Plan was to use professional learning communities as a means of kind of reaching out to faculty, working with faculty to improve and to enhance what they were doing in the classroom, both regarding collaboration and teamwork, and the way that it was assessed as well. And so we developed professional learning communities, and we started off with 11 people. I think professional learning communities had been at UTA for several years beforehand, but we're in danger of going away, and so the QEP just was a natural fit with the professional learning community program that we had. And so we adjusted the focus to one of teamwork. We had about 11 faculty the first year. That increased to just almost 20 in the second year, and we've had around about 28 this year in the program. And typically what we've asked faculty to do is we meet together and we talk about what's happening in the classroom, encourage each other, come up with innovative ways in which we can, in this case, use teamwork in the classroom and use it effectively. And assess it as well. And it's been a great program. We always end up at the end of the year, we try to get the faculty to put together at least a poster and maybe a presentation as to what they've done in the classroom. So this is just an example of some of the of 2 of the posters that were put together by our faculty. But what we found And what I found as the QEP director, as I was thinking about this, was that, you know, this is great and we're doing good stuff and we are reaching a lot of students across all of the colleges at our university, but it's not this large scale concerted effort that I wanted, because everybody is doing something different in all of their classes, which is wonderful. But in one class, in the broadcast class, you can see the poster on the left, they're doing one thing, and in business and economics, they're doing something else. And so it's hard to gather this uniform set of data and to really be able to see what's going on. And one of the things that SACS really talked to us about when they came and visited was that, how are you going to move the needle? How are you going to show that the needle is being moved? And that was something that I was consistently sort of wrestling with. And I was at a SEC Summer Institute, and in one of the sessions, one of the presenters was talking about their own Quality Enhancement Plan initiative, and she was talking about how they had used a book as part of their program. I can't even remember what the program was, but just this, just the book, it just resonated with me. And I thought, you know, why can't we do something like that? Why can't we create something centered around teamwork that could be used in courses across the university, and we could come up with some kind of an assessment initiative as well. And then we would have this concerted effort. We'd be able to do some sort of pre and post measurement, and maybe try and identify whether things are actually working or not. And so, long and the short of it is, we created a teamwork open access guide for the university. Now, I initially had called it a handbook, which I still maintain it is a handbook, but we did a focus group very early on with the group of peer academic leaders. They're students that are leading our first year experience classes. And we did a focus group with those students, and they hated the term handbook. They didn't want anything to do with it. And then we did some other focus groups with some other students. I teach a graduate qualitative research class, and so one of the assignments I get my students to do in that class is to do focus groups. And so selfishly, I've been using them to not only learn how to do focus groups, but to do focus groups for our QEP. And we found that students hated handbooks, so they like the term guide. So we created this teamwork guide, and we wanted it to be open access because we wanted it to be available for anybody who wanted to use it. And so later on in the presentation, Justin will talk a little bit more about the process and how we went about sort of creating this and some of the challenges. And he'll also talk a little bit more about assessment as well. So the guide was designed by an undergraduate student, a student worker that I had working with me. And so great experience for her as we worked together to create this. Now, the first then table of contents, if we just go through and look at some of the things that we put into this teamwork guide. And I just should note here again, another thing that came out of, and I don't want to steal all of Justin's thunder, but I think this is kind of important. We'd created the table of contents, and the students told me they don't like tables of contents, and they don't like too much text, and they don't like to read lots. and so we were sort of faced with this kind of challenge, but they said we love infographics. And so even if you take the text and turn it into, basically have the same amount of information but put into a sort of a graphical format, the students really liked that and it resonated with them. So they even wanted the table of contents to be a infographic. So we were thinking, we assembled a group together and we started sort of brainstorming and thinking about, you know, what is it that we want to have in this guide? What kind of things would be useful? And one of my colleagues is her research area has to do with organizational communication and teamwork. So I enlisted her, and we enlisted some other faculty as well, one from the College of Engineering, because engineering is accredited based around teamwork, and it's something that they will admit themselves, at least at our university, the engineers admit that they don't do a very good job of teaching it. And the research seems to back that as well. We got the somebody from the Career Center, director of our Career Center, to come and be a part of it. So we talked about some of the things that we thought needed to be in this teamwork guide. And so we had obviously an introduction and objectives. We had some learning outcomes that came from the QEP, and we kind of stated those. And then we just had a short section on why is teamwork important. I think the important thing to sort of mention, I guess, at the outset here too, is this was not designed to be a comprehensive guide on teamwork. It wasn't designed to be this magic elixir that would solve all of the problems, but what it was designed to do was just to be literally a handbook, a primer, a way that we could give faculty some tools that they could sort of teach this concept to the students, maybe teach some things that they weren't teaching before, help the students think a little bit more about why collaboration is important, why teamwork is important, and what it means. The other thing too is that this was going to be a guide that was used across the university, not just by faculty, but in our first year experience courses. So peer academic leaders, who a lot of them are undergraduates, are actually going to be using this guide as well. So it had to be accessible on a whole lot of different levels. So we have a section on what are the benefits of teamwork, just kind of outlining what is a team and why is teamwork even important. There's a lot of students, when you talk to them about it, they don't always realize, or they're not always understanding why we do certain things that we do in our classes. And as instructors, oftentimes we see the value, we see the end result, we see the big picture. We realize that, you know, there's a method to why we're doing what we're doing, but students don't always see that. And particularly when it comes to collaboration as well, it's a source of frustration for them. They don't necessarily understand the big picture and what kind of skills that they're gaining or potentially could be gaining when it's done well. So another section then was, what is a team and how can you contribute? So what are the processes of forming a successful team? Understanding yourself as a team member. So we have a section where students are able to kind of evaluate what their strengths are and what their weaknesses are, and just get them thinking about the fact that, you know, people bring different things to collaboration. It's important for you to be able to understand who you are and what you bring to the table. One section that has really resonated with people is being a leader and being a follower. The importance of not just being a leader, but the importance of being a follower. And in a recent focus group we just found that this was a section that was incredibly impactful and probably one of the more useful sections for a lot of people. Even the peer academic leaders themselves were saying how they've found the guide to be useful for them in their own lives and not just as a tool for teaching. In fact, we had one who told us, she said, I was going to apply for a job and I got this out and I took notes on best practices and stuff, and she said, now I went and got the job. So it was good to see that it's working on a lot of different levels. The only problem is she now hates her job. At least she got the job. So being a leader, being a follower, handling conflict. And so this is what the inside of the guide kind of looks like: pictures, infographics, the importance of being a follower, interactivity in terms of being a follower, and so just letting students know, letting people know that being a follower isn't second best, and that may be what you're suited for, but sometimes you may have more power as a follower than as a leader, and not everybody wants to or has the skills to be out front, but there are those that work very well in a supportive role, and we've got to have those in a supportive role, and those followers, if we're really going to have a successful team. Handling conflict in team. So again, just another example. Just some very basic things, but things that seem to really resonate with the students too. Using positive tones, listening to what others have to say, avoiding telling others that they're wrong. Like we said, this is not the be-all and end-all, but it's a launching point. It's a way that we can start to plant some seeds and plant some ideas into the students' minds, so that as we start to talk about what teamwork is, and we talk about why teamwork is important, and we ask them to think about in their particular careers where they would like to end up or what they would like to do. Is teamwork important? Why is it important? How can you contribute to a team? Another infographic, another part of it is the process of forming a successful team, and some of our faculty in the professional learning communities have even taken some of this to heart as well. I had a colleague who taught a large theory course of over 100 students, and she actually had some teamwork going on in that particular course. And one of the things she found was that, obviously students were complaining about having to work together, and their presentations were not really that well done. Well, the next semester, as part of our professional learning community, she decided that she was going to ask the groups to come up with a team name and maybe even a team mascot as well. And she said just that simple notion of naming their teams created a sense of ownership among the people within the team. And she said the teamwork experience improved incredibly. And by the end of the year, their presentations were a whole lot better. And she said, in fact, they were getting standing ovations from some of the for some of the presentations. And it's not the only thing, but it's certainly she really pointed to as a key thing was that she really talked about ownership and just contributing to the team, but having a team name. Things like the team vision and mission, roles and responsibilities, those kinds of things. And this is the section on understanding yourself as a team member. And like I said, it's not designed to be it's not a Myers-Briggs test or any of the other kind of the Gallup personality tests or things. But what we've found, even through, and we've piloted this for at least, this is a second semester now, and I think Justin will talk a little bit more about that. But we found that even giving names to different roles within a team was a little bit of a revelation to people, that they hadn't really thought about what's my strength, what can I bring to the team, but then what is my teammate's strength and what can they bring. And so rather than being a source of annoyance, that starting to think about, well, what are their strengths and how can we then use our strengths collectively to strengthen what we're doing. And so this section has also been very well received by people as we've talked about that. And then we wanted this to be very practical as well. So it's not just, all right, we can use this in the classroom so that you have a better experience in the classroom, but we wanted the students to start to think about how can you take the experiences that you're having in the classroom and how can you use them in the future when you start to apply for a job? So how can you take what you're doing in the classroom, and when you're interviewing for a job, how can you talk about those experiences you had? How can you talk about the benefits? How can you talk about the skills that you gained by working with other people? And also on your resume. And I don't know about you, but one of the things that I've found is that students will put together a resume, and sometimes they'll show it to me and they'll say, what do you think? And I'll look at it and go, well, you left this out and you left that out. And they'll look at me and go, well, that's not really important, or we didn't really do anything, or, I in my area is broadcast. And so sometimes students will be applying for a job as a reporter or a television producer. And I'll say, well, why didn't you put your experience, working in the retail store? Well, they're like, well, that's not aligned with broadcast. I'm like, okay, well, think about what kind of skills you learned when you were working in the store. You timeliness and teamwork and communication, these kinds of things. And they look at me like, really, that goes on a resume? And I'm like, yes, it does. And it's the same with the classroom. These things that you're engaged in the classroom, these different activities, experiential activities, you're learning these skills, and these skills are things that you need to highlight. And so that was sort of the genesis of why we kind of really wanted this section on marketing your teamwork experience. And so we got the director of our career center in, and she really helped us to put this together, how to prepare for an interview. And then we wanted some testimonials too. And so and this is something we need to work on a little more, but we got some testimonials from some employers in the area, just short little 1-minute videos that just says, this is why teamwork is important in our area. This is why it's useful. This is how teamwork is used, and this is why we value it so much. And then we have some resources, and there's a reflection in the survey, which Justin will talk about as well. And so this is, again, just a little example of the inside, but finding the right example. So maybe you led a school project team. What were your roles and responsibilities? So you ensured all participants knew the due dates to meet and the deadlines, and complete it with high quality work. You prepared a collective calendar to help the team with scheduling. Maybe you prepared Google Docs to ensure everyone collaborated. Maybe, just planting seeds, planting thoughts in their minds. Maybe, you worked at a local restaurant. What were your responsibilities? What were some of the things that you did? And again, how can you take that and then put that on your resume and make yourself more marketable as you're preparing to look for work? And we have this was just a section on what are some possible team-oriented questions that maybe an employer will ask you. And so asking them to think about telling their story and how can they effectively answer these questions. So how would you define an effective team? Tell me about a time you worked on a team and what you did enjoy or not enjoy, and why. What's an example of the last team you were on, and what went well and what didn't go well. So just some just planting seeds, planting thoughts, and also giving tools to faculty so that they're not on their own when it comes to, okay, we're going to work together, we're going to collaborate, we're going to do a group project. And just being able to maybe take even just one class period and go, before we go on to this, before we start working on this team project, before we start collaborating together, let's just take a period just to sit down and go over this document, and let's just think about what is a team, why is it important, and how can you make this experience collaborating together in the classroom, working together, how can you make it better? And the guide is not designed necessarily to be read from beginning to end. It's designed to be very modular, so you could just pick out one section, and that may be the only thing that you work on. Maybe you just work on what it means to be a team member. Maybe you work on the difference between being a leader and a follower. So it depends on what stage your class is. It depends on what type of course it is. If you've got a senior level class, then maybe you want to focus more on the employee kind of aspect and the interview sort of aspect. If you're early on in the college experience, sophomore, freshman, maybe you want to focus a little bit more on just what is teamwork and why it's important. So it's designed to be modular as well. So that's just an overview of this guide that we put together. And I'm going to turn it over to Justin now, and Justin's going to talk a little bit about the process that went into creating this, and then the assessment that we're using to kind of assess the guide. So Justin, I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you, Andrew. So as Andrew mentioned early on, we were trying to think about a better way to be able to really assess and enhance teamwork at UTA. And sitting in an open education resource session, sort of came across some ideas about ways that we can share some resources openly. And so we moved pretty quickly and created an advisory committee. And Andrew has already mentioned most of the people that are part of it, but we had a professor from engineering, one from communication. We had the director of the Career Center that we saw, and then we sort of added people as necessary throughout the process. We identified certain key stakeholders at our university that would be interested in the project, as well as could provide some useful feedback. So this includes our Division of Student Success, particularly around the first year experience courses, and we also conducted an initial survey just around some of the perceptions and needs around teamwork that students had. So that helped inform our original draft version, which is not too different in terms of a lot of the content and stuff that we covered. We did make some tweaks to that, but it was an incredibly text-heavy document, and as Andrew mentioned, the feedback that we received is we need to cut it down. We can find ways to present it in more clear, concise ways, and definitely an emphasis on the more graphic visual side of it. Andrew mentioned that we also did focus groups with his class, as well as the peer academic leaders, and we also received feedback from a number of our colleagues at UTA. So ultimately, we did a lot of revising. Our student helper did a lot of great work on creating the PDF guide that we had at first, including all those different infographics. We worked with different people on campus to bring in UTA branding, including as saw in the previous picture, like pictures of the UTA basketball team, things like that, just to really, hone in on the UTA focus of that. And then
yeah, and I should mention too, just, I mean, it was a good point, Justin. I just, some of these pictures, not this one down here, but some of these others were pictures taken by, in this case, a student who was affiliated with athletics. And so he gave us some pictures that he had taken. And some of these were pictures taken from our different classes, professional learning community courses, where people were engaged in teamwork activities. So we were trying to make it as sort of, involve as many different people from around the university community as possible. Sorry, Justin.
Oh, that's great. So one of the things that we also felt was very important is to not just have a student guide, but also have an instructor guide that could help people move through this this resource. And essentially what it has is a number of different suggestions, and I'll talk a little bit more about that here in a minute. But at this time, Regime, Rashmi, we are not, I don't have it to show at this time, but I will be able to provide that as a resource at the conclusion of this activity. We are still working on that the most right now, yeah. Because we've been wanting to pilot the student guide first as well, and get as much feedback as possible from people that were doing it as we were working to build it out. So there are a couple gaps in it at present, but there are some good things in there, and I will discuss the content of that here in a minute. So we've been working to build this draft guide right now. Andrew has been showing you the PDF version that we've created using InDesign in this case, but we also have the Pressbooks version. So Pressbooks is a publishing instance at our university, and there are many different versions at different institutions that allows us to share it openly and freely as sort of like an online book where they can go and look at the different sections, has different almost like chapters of sorts, where they can move back and forth to the parts that they need. Now Pressbooks, as I will discuss, does have some limitations, and particularly in the way that we wanted to create this visual content. So Pressbooks is built off of essentially WordPress. So if you have any experience working in WordPress, it's great. It's a great place to work in. It's very intuitive overall, but there are some challenges, especially when you have to work with things like style sheets and other things. And so some of the issues that we've had is around, when you create a resource like this, it has to be accessible. So if we're putting in pictures, we just can't just throw up pictures all over the place without any sort of some order, without alt text. We can't have these graphical text box listed the same way if it reads out of order. So there are a lot of challenges to the way that you design a page like that. It's essentially a web page that has it's a web page of content in that book. So you have to be really careful about the way that you have it. So right now, our guides are up, and they are tested for one browser, and we've been working to hopefully be able to expand that as we go forward. But that's definitely been one of the challenges around if you want to create something that is this visual in that space, and if you don't have the expertise or the capacity to be able to do those things like custom style sheets and heavy HTML, then you could run into some issues if your institution doesn't have support for that kind of thing. It's a challenge for sure. So the other part of it is that you know, we really want this to be as Andrew mentioned, modular as possible. People can take and borrow what they need from it. So everything here is also under a Creative Commons license. We just asked for attribution non-commercial to where people can borrow and take what they need and adapt for whatever they need in their context. Because this is ultimately what this goal, the goal of this is to, you know, help with this the development of this particular skill that is a critical one for the careers going forward. So essentially, where we are at right now is we've created the Pressbooks instance. We have the PDF. We've incorporated a lot of feedback. We were getting a lot more of it throughout this semester, and we were going to go ahead and revise. It is currently being piloted in first-year experience courses, which there are a substantial number from the fall. I believe we had almost 6,000 students that went through that. This spring, it's a little bit fewer. I believe it's around 1,000, but I may be wrong about that. And then we also, so there might be freshmen, but it also could be transfer students. And yes, Andrew just mentioned that we work very closely with the Division of Student Success to be able to do that. Now, these first year experience courses are often taught by the peer academic leaders that Andrew mentioned. And one of the great things that we think is very important to me, and it's very important to something, the way I view how we build our courses out, is co-created student artifacts too. So the peer academic leaders have some subject matter expertise that they can share. So if we need to be able to create a lesson plan around using teamwork in engineering or nursing or that, then they also creating that, and we're giving them credit as contributors and storing basically all their lesson plans in a resource commons area. So therefore, they are also part of this experience, which has been really great, and they've done a really great job so far.
Yeah, they have, and as I mentioned earlier too, that you know we just recently did focus groups with peer academic leaders. We had about 25 of them, and one of the things that you know I found very interesting was that not only did they enjoy trying to use this to you know help the students in the class, but that the peer academic leaders themselves learned a lot just by going through this. And you know, and so that was something that sort of hadn't occurred to me, but it probably should have, because they're undergraduate students as well. And so it really served two purposes in some extent.
Yeah. So then, in addition to the PALs and the first year experience courses, which again include freshmen and transfer students, we also have the PLC program. A number of our fellows in the program have used the guide to varying degrees. We know that there are many others that want to use it starting in the fall as well for part of their projects, because the PLC fellows do create a certain project. So they have the fall where they kind of go through more content and plan out what they're going to do in the spring, to be able to see change in teamwork in their context. So for sake of time, I won't go into depth on those projects, but we do have some other people that have asked to use it who are familiar with our work. As I mentioned, I think in the chat window here, like the Department of Psychology used it in graduate courses. It's been used to try to help teams sort of graduate teams think about how that they approach different research projects and things like that. So Andrew, go ahead and read the next one. So the instructor guide that I mentioned, it has PAL created lesson plans as well as different case studies from faculty. We have one in there right now, and we're working to add a few more this spring. And then the other big part of it, again, is providing sample prompts, different activities and exercises. So if you are having trouble thinking about how you might do it, we created, and we borrowed some from the Workforce Bureau, as well as some other ones that we created as well, just to be able to help guide people through and sort of think about it. So they'll have some UTA created ones, they'll have examples from faculty, as well as just some general good activities that they can try in their courses. Okay, so one of the important parts is we've made sure to align this guide to the student learning outcomes that we have for the Quality Enhancement Plan. So this is really focused on, again, recognizing what effective teamwork looks like, understanding how to practice effective teamwork and value teamwork, take your experience from the classroom and use it in your career, that sort of thing. So so this has been something that has framed everything that we've included in the guide right now. And then we have certain ways that we are assessing it. So Andrew, next slide, please. So the at the beginning of whenever they do their unit. Now, let's say if it's in the first year experience courses, this might not be at the beginning of the semester and at the end of the semester. It might be part of the way through a semester before they do the unit, and then they finish it in 2 weeks. Say it's a 1-hour class and they meet on Wednesdays, they might do it that one Wednesday, do the pre, and then do the post the following week. So it might be a short or it might be a long term. But we are doing pre and post surveys where we're looking at some different factors and ways that we can be able to see how they're, again, how they value teamwork, how they see their role in teams and things like that, that some of those things that Andrew discussed earlier, how those have changed over the course. We also have some reflection, sort of small paragraph reflections that we're asking them to do, where they sort of think about their role in teams and how things have changed and things like that. One thing that's important with this is we are working with our university analytics group, as well as a graduate research assistant and a colleague from Department of Communication to do a mixed methods research project. We've done qualitative interviews, we've done, again, some focus groups, we've done we've done some qualitative coding of open responses, and we're also doing, again, with the surveys, we're also doing some other approaches, as well as doing some topic modeling on different different thematic on different themes from the teamwork, how they've gone through the teamwork modules. So we originally had 16 themes. We refined that down to around 9. Some preliminary results that we had, at least from the pre-survey data, kind of goes around communication, support and help, productivity, such as efficiency and timeliness and things like that, workload and roles, idea sharing, working through conflicts and problems, things like that. So where we are currently at with that research right now is we finished going through all the pre-data and we've gone through reflection data, and we're working on post right now. So we hope to share more about that in a future event, maybe the 2021 LEAP Forum. And we also have, Andrew, I think that's probably good for there. But,
yeah, we ended up with about 1,800 pre-survey, about 1,300 post-surveys, and about 300 and some odd reflections. And I mean, it has,
fall 2019.
Yeah, mm-hmm. For fall 2019. And like Justin said, it's been really just interesting, even in the sort of the first year, seeing some of the differences, particularly even across colleges. So we've noticed that I just mentioned a couple of colleges, but engineering, there was a strong emphasis on productivity, but less on communication as part of team. Whereas in nursing and education, a much stronger emphasis on communication, but less on efficiency. And so we're starting to see, even by gender, but certainly by college as well, even at an early stage, differences in looking at teamwork and differences in understanding what teamwork is. So yeah, in sum, that's kind of where we're at the moment. This is an ongoing project. Like Justin said, we've piloted it in the fall, and now this semester is the second semester that we've used it. We did the focus groups with the peer academic leaders to kind of just get a sense of not only what they thought about it, but also how they used the guide. So this ongoing research, assessment, analysis, just continuing to look at it has been very, very important. We found that the peer academic leaders almost uniformly really appreciated it as a resource. They really liked it. They found that they learned from it as much as anybody else. The one negative about using it in the first year experience courses is that there's a lot of material that they have to cover in that course, and so they're only able to maybe give just a week, just a couple of lessons possibly to teamwork. But on the flip side, that's more than what the students would have had otherwise. And so we're going to be able to maybe track some of these students through their college career, and hopefully we can start to see just, about looking at their attitudes towards teamwork and their experiences and that kind of thing, and see if there's been some changes. So it's a work in progress, but it's something that we've really enjoyed being a part of, and I think there's a lot of possibilities there. So we'll open up to questions. Justin, you want to address that with the assessment, the direct measures?
I'm pulling that up real quick.
Are you there, Justin?
Yes. Sorry, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, sorry about that. So there are a couple different things that we are looking at in, of course. So the survey questions that we have, again, we're looking at different variables. We have gender, college, school, department, classification. We're also looking at teamwork related areas where they feel that they would benefit the most. So that includes all the different parts of the guide that Andrew's gone through. Do you feel that you understand what effective teamwork is? And if not, do you feel that you, why do you feel that you don't have that? So we have some text responses there. To what extent do you feel that skills are valuable in the workforce? What role are you most comfortable in as part of a team? That means leader, member, both. We're also exploring, if you're not in that role, how can you still contribute to the team? And then to what extent is teamwork an important skill for your future career? So that's what we have on the pre-survey. We also have the post-survey, which looks for some change on some of those things. So they also discussed the course where they did the student teamwork guide. I'm sorry, guys, can't talk today. And then some similar information we have. We asked them if they'd be willing to include their student ID number so we can track it easier across. And then we have them rate the modules that they covered, all the different ones. I think there were 8 total, as well as this perceived usefulness. We also had them look at, we had them do a Likert scale around the guide, their ability to work effectively in teams. Has it improved? Can they work better with difficult team members? Can they more effectively coordinate tasks and activity of the team and have a better understanding of the importance of teamwork? Things like that.
And so the goal in terms of where this has been used, I mean, it's been used in different ways in different courses, but at least primarily with the first year experience course, it's really more of an introduction and evaluation of teamwork, and then it's been used differently in some of the higher level courses where there actually is more different group activity, where they're actually engaged in different assignments and then assessed based on what's going on in those assignments. There's less assignments, there's more sort of just some activities at the first year experience level, and then more concrete assignments in other courses. Our faculty affairs. Guide effectively about using. No, this is this is still very much in the pilot stage, and so we're still, we're open to adding more stuff to it. I don't want to add a whole lot more to it, at least at the moment. But the way, part of the reason why I want it to be open access is because I want people to be able to take what we've developed sort of as a core and then go in directions that would best suit them, whether it's adding, some extra sections or modifying a section a little bit, or, in terms of evaluations, in terms of assessments and all of that kind of stuff. I want it to be, we just felt it was important to have something where there was nothing, where we really didn't have anything. And then, my hope is that it's going to be developed and altered and changed by, whoever decides that it's valuable for them.
And one other thing is we've worked with, again, University Analytics, and what we're trying to do also is explore how we can assess this over the long array here, where it's not just done in like this first year experience course, or even just some isolated courses, but if it's better integrated across our university, and then be able to track some of these things as they continue to progress through their program of study. So we've asked sort of a catch-all sort of thing that we can reach out to them in the future to be able to continue to be able to do this research, even if it's like 2-3 years down the road. So that's one thing that we're trying to do. And another thing we're also trying to work on with University Analytics is, again, around some of these topic modeling approaches and others, is better ways to try to automate some of the process. Trying to qualitatively code 1,800 responses is a lot. So we're trying to find ways to be able to use the hand coding that we've done so far to create a tool that might be a little bit more useful, and that could maybe help the instructors also see if they are getting some achieving some of the things that they want when they're using the teamwork guide in their classes.
Well, thank you very much for attending. Thank you for your participation. I certainly appreciate it. If you have any other questions, you can feel free to reach out to us. Let me go back to the first slide here. And there's our contact information there, my email and Justin's email. So feel free to reach out to us if you have any questions, or if you would like a copy of what we've done. We'll be happy to share it with you. And like we said, we're working to get it fully integrated into Pressbooks. It's a little more challenging than what we thought, particularly with all the graphics and that kind of thing, but we're getting there.
And as Jeff mentioned, these will all be all the slides and the recordings will be stored, and we'll make sure to include links to those resources through the slides, so you'll be able to have that.
Definitely. Thank you all. I appreciate it.
Thank you all for coming. Appreciate it. Have a great end of the semester.